All sail set. Chapter 10. Land ho! A nugget of gold. A ship clears for China. On the afternoon of August 31st, 1851, the Flying Cloud entered the Golden Gate, 89 days and 21 hours from New York, the fastest passage that had ever been made on that course. The hills surrounding the bay were wrapped in the arid warmth of dry midsummer. Until Telegraph Hill was rounded, no evidence of human habitation or civilization could be seen. Only the crumbling earthworks at Fort Point and the dilapidated adobe of the Presidio, the old Mexican military post. Alcatraz Island was bare and white with the guano of countless seabirds that nested upon it and hatched their young. Wild oats, fresh and green to the sailor's eye, grew rank on the hills of Contra Costa, while herds of cattle grazed in the plains at their feet. Once around Telegraph Hill, however, the scene sprang to life. As the harbor of San Francisco opened up before the Flying Cloud, 100 ships of every rig and description could be seen lying at anchor. Clearly a magnet was drawing the commerce of the world to this spot. Gold. The Cloud skirted cautiously along the cove and around into the very center of the town. A town more bristling with excitement could not be imagined. Tents and rude dwellings dotted the hillside. The gambling fraternity held possession of the field. The Mexican game of Monte kept the gold forever on the move. Mercantile establishments were thronged with men of every age and condition, outfitting for the diggings. If the gold fever had been racking the New England states, it raged with all-consuming fury. The heart of the multitude was in the mines. 1,000 ships were said to have taken the Cape Horn route since the great news of '49. Old vessels, for the most part, long held to be unseaworthy and patched together to meet the something of the hour. More than one of them had entered the Golden Gate with pumps working day and night. Instead of coming to anchor, they were run directly upon the flats of Mission Bay, there to end their seagoing days as hotels, boarding houses, gambling dens, and whatnot. The Niantic, a full-rigged ship that had bucked the winds of every sea, was floated up to what is now the very heart of San Francisco, and there turned into a boarding house of sorts. A public entrance was hewn in her stout oak side, and over the opening a sign announced, "Rest for the weary and storage for trunks." The ship Apollo knew a similar fate, being converted into a saloon and gambling den. Across the way, the brig Euphemia had been purchased by the city council for a prison, and here the mutineers of the Flying Cloud, with Mr. Jones, her erstwhile first mate, were taken pending trial. I set down these things for you here, reader, because it seems that proper sequence of my tale so demands. Actually, however, it was many weeks after the Flying Cloud had come to anchor in San Francisco Bay before I learned them myself. On that fateful afternoon, I lay on the line that divides consciousness from oblivion, now shifting windward, now to leeward. A burning fog seemed to envelop me, a fever that racked my body internally and tortured it without. Sometimes a familiar face would pierce the fog, Wits or Mr. Andrews, or perhaps a voice. I remember the strangeness of the ship coming to anchor, the rattle of her chains, the stillness that settled in her bones. I remember distant music, wild cheers, and the thud of feet on deck. People around me. A voice, the old man's, saying, "Think he'll pull through, Doc?" Another voice, a strange one, replying, if we can get him to the hospital, maybe." Hands, gentle as a woman's, lifted the bandages. Nature knew a way. Pain too great to bear became its own anesthetic, and the fog closed in again. That means his pain was so great that he passed out. It lifted shortly for a while. A gentle motion rocked me. I was in a street. Faces, unfamiliar ones now, all around me. Voices. I burned to a blister. Flying cloud, almost done for she was. I saw the back of a head that I recognized. It was Lanny's. The poles of my stretcher were over his shoulders. Behind me a voice cried, "Ease up a little, Lanny." That was Whit's voice. When sustained consciousness first returned, I know not. I seemed to have come back from a long voyage, and I was tired. I lay in a lengthy room of frame construction, high on the slopes of a hill. There was no glass in the big window openings, only a sort of netting to keep out flies and mosquitoes. A fresh breeze swept through the room, blowing the white sheets of the sick beds and stirring the hair on many a hot forehead. The only nurses were two sisters of mercy, moving silently through the ward in their dark robes. Something in each of those pure, noble faces, sheltered within its starched headdress, reminded me of my mother, and brought a sudden pang of homesickness, sharper even than the pangs that knifed my body. I had found that it was wiser to lie still than to move, to take shallow breaths instead of deep ones. I knew that my head was wrapped in sticky bandages, leaving only my eyes and nose exposed. My arms and hands were bound about as well, but what my body might be like under the enveloping covers I did not know. Out of the clue of my eye I could see a sick man in the beds on either side of me. Silent men they were, one with his eyes closed, the other staring off into space. Who were they? Who could say with what high hopes they had started out, or what despair gnawed at them now? Somewhere a man was crying out. One of the sisters was comforting him gently, as if he had been a little shaver. Soon he fell asleep. I calculate you must have burned your tongue as well as the rest of you. It was Lanny's voice. How long had he been sitting there? For half a watch you haven't said a ready word, he complained. Eyes wide open, too. I didn't know you were here, I answered. Can't shift my head around much. Tell me, the news. Aye, news there is aplenty, me hearty, he answered, his young voice alive with eagerness. The whole town's gone daft over the flying cloud. There's placards pasted on every bollard. 89 days, 21 hours from New York. Anchor to anchor. Think of it, Thatch. Nobody ever heard the like of it before. Mr. Andrews says we've made history. The Cloud's freight rates are rocketing. They're unloading her in 2 shakes of a clue line to clear for China. Another record she'll set there, or I can't see a hole through a ladder. How about Sneed? Dead as a herring he is. I suffocated and burned to death when they found him. And the mate? Ho, Mr. Jones, he chortled. He is locked up in the brig Euphemia, with the rest of 'em packet rats. Tighter and weevils and hardtack. I'd hate to stand in their sea boots, mutiny on the high seas they're charged with. Aye, it won't go easy with them. These here Frisco folks are what they call vigilantes, and they don't hold with lawbreakers of any sort. And the old man? Lanny's face beamed. They're dinin' and winin' him like he was the king or something. The owners gave him a big dinner at the Parker House last night, and a silver service to take back to his lady. When is the Cloud clearing for China? It was hard to bring about these words. I knew the answer. Most any day now, Thatch. Against my will, my eyes looked down at my hands and their many wrappings. Lanny's eyes followed mine. Gore, Thatch, he cried, his voice straining. You'll be all right in a day or two and ready to fist a rile as well as ever. His friendly face was bending over me. Something splashed on my nose. One of the sisters laid a hand on Lanny's arm. I'm afraid you'll have to go now, she said softly, but you can come back again tomorrow if you like. My eyes followed Lanny as he moved down the ward. There was a swing of the sea in his walk and in the lift of his head, and I sought the open window with its far view of the Pacific, blue and ruffling in the afternoon wind. Ships out there in the harbor looked like toy boats with handkerchiefs spread for sails. The ladder of the sunbeams slanted out the window and upward, like the shrouds of some heroic vessel whose main tuck was a star. All very well to dream dreams, thought I mournfully, but dreams have to be paid for in one coin or another. Dreams of Spice Islands laying in another sea, of black-sailed frigates whose decks ran dark with pirate blood, of the miracle of the albatross wheeling through wastes of lonely sky, of sperm whale heaving his varnished hulk to the surface to throw a jet of rainbow mist high into the air. All very well, those dreams, as long as you kept them at home where they belonged. But I had shipped with mine to sea. The door at the far end of the ward opened. A sister in her black robe entered, followed by 2 men. One of the men, a landsman, by the cut of his jib, I had never seen before. The other was Captain Josiah Perkins Creasy, the old man. "Well, Thatcher, me boy, how are you?" The old man's voice boomed through the room, though he tried to mute it in consideration of the sick. 40 years of Skysul shouting echoed in his thunders. "I'm fine, sir." "This is Mr. Webster, the Western representative of Grinnell's." A wave of his hand included the stranger. The man smiled. "Glad to know ye, lad." "Well, Thatcher," said Captain Creasy, clearing his throat, "the doctor tells me it'll be another month before you'll be up and about, and some time longer before you'll be able to use those hands again." "Yes, sir. I know. The Cloud will be in China by then." The old man laid his hand on my shoulder. "There's no place on the ship for a sick man, lad," he said kindly. "I've arranged with the captain of the Sargasso to ship you home with him next month. I misdoubt you'll be able to work your passage, but you can thank Mr. Webster here for extending this courtesy on behalf of Grinnell's." "Thank you, sir." "And the other thing, Thatcher," the old man cleared his throat again, and seemed suddenly ill at ease. The company, that is, has got something here for you." One of his hands fumbled in the pocket of his blue serge coat and produced a small box tied with a string. His fingers picked clumsily at the knots. "Shall I do it?" asked the sister, smiling. Her hands were deft with small things, and in no time the box was open. An exclamation escaped her. "Ah, how beautiful it is! See?" In the palm of her hand lay a nugget of gold from the fields. It shone with a warm, friendly glow. On one side of it was slightly flattened out and polished. Captain Creasy chuckled. "Read what's engraved on it, Thatcher," he said. I can't, sir." "I'll read it for you," offered the sister. "It says, Enoch Thatcher, ship, Flying Cloud, 1851, for a great service, bravely performed." The morning dawned bright with gold, as all these mornings seemed to do. In the ward, men had not yet begun to stir. I could hear the steady rhythm of their breathing. By the door, one of the sisters sat asleep in her chair, her face hidden under the droop of her white headdress. The wind blew through the open window, tonic with life. The waters of the Golden Gate fretted within the circling hills. I lifted my head a trifle, the better to see. A southeasterly breeze was blowing across the bay, whipping the water into cresting wavelets. Cloud shadows darkened the surface as they passed. There was a ship out there, beating across the bay with all canvas spread, clean-lined and eager as a greyhound, the core and essence of a ship, all pride and beauty and strength. From her stem sprang the figure of an angel, with trumpet poised, like a herald of good tidings. And almost it seemed I could hear the wild gladness of the trumpet blast. Out through the Golden Gate, China-bound, as she passed into the reaches of the wide Pacific, she dipped her ensign. Only a routine courtesy of a ship leaving port, not a signal, I knew. Yet perhaps. "Did you want something?" a gentle voice asked. "No, sister. I thought I heard you call." The end.